Maybe you're out there having gone to business school or you have an MBA, and that's why you've landed on my YouTube channel because you are a business person looking for an opportunity. But more than likely, you did not go to business school, you do not have an MBA, but you're super curious and interested in this conversation about business ownership through franchising, because franchising buys down the risk of owning a business and you don't need an MBA in order to be successful. So whether you're the person with the MBA or the person without the MBA, in this video, we're going to talk money and money terms. If you're new to my channel, hello and welcome. My name is Kim Daly. I'm a franchise consultant. And for the last 2 decades of my life, I have been helping people just like you say yes to the dream to own a franchise business by matching your background, interest, skills, finances, and life goals to some of the best franchise opportunities out there today. Now, if you stay with me until the end of the video and you're interested in beginning a process that will help you match those opportunities to you, then I will tell you how you could be my next candidate. Okay, so let's talk about the terms that are often thrown around in a business conversation that may end up confusing you. Where this video is coming from is I spend a lot of time coaching people who I've already placed into franchises. And what I realize is they're tossing around terms and they're intermingling them, and it's very confusing. It's also very confusing when you go to validate a franchise by talking to other franchise owners and you ask a question thinking it's a well-meaninged question and you understand the meaning of the word that you're throwing out, but they're answering the question you asked using their own definition of the term that you threw out. And then you're like, oh my God, what is actually happening? Because I can't get the numbers to make sense. That's where this video is coming from. So the 2 keywords I want to talk about today, the first one's going to be your break even, and the second one's going to be ROI. Okay, so you probably know the words break even, and you probably know that ROI equals return on investment. Now, the problem comes when people use the word break even and they're trying to get an ROI. There are 2 types of break-evens in a business. There's your monthly cash flow break-even, and there's the, hey, I'm putting in $500,000 into the business. When am I going to break even and be able to pull out $500,000? Okay, and therein lies the difficulty in asking what seems like a basic question. Hey, when did you break even? And you get an answer that doesn't answer the question you're trying to ask. So, without making this too complicated, the break even on your monthly cash flow is obviously when you have the cash flow coming in that equals the expenses you have going out. And that, I would argue, is the most important break even that you should be validating for and thinking about. And I'm going to come back to why that is in just a minute. The break even, or the ROI, return on your investment, is a much different number. Now, this is what complicates this conversation because people will say, well, there's not a good ROI in that business. Compared to what? What do you mean by that? So 90% of millionaires own their own business. Why? Because it's not a good investment? No, because truly smart people who are building wealth understand that business ownership is the heart of the alternative investing portfolio. Why? Because businesses provide the most amount of cash flow, tax advantage, and equity. Those are the 3 things that we're trying to get in the business ownership equation. Cash is king. Tax advantage, right? Shelter, so we don't have to pay all that out to the government. Not that we're not good patriots. And then, of course, the equity that you're building, that's yours, like equity in your home when you're paying down your mortgage. And that equity is yours when you go to sell the business, you can apply some multiple and hopefully get it. And in the franchise equation, we're buying down the risks of launching this business. We're buying down the risk of running this business through different economies, recessions, pandemics. We're partnering ourselves with people who know how to be successful, and they're going to coach and train and mentor and support us in that journey. They're not going to do it for us. They're going to coach and train and mentor us in that journey. Okay, so break even, we're going to come back to that. Let's stay focused on the ROI part for just a minute. So oftentimes people will say, well, what do you mean? I'm going to put $500,000 into that business, Kim, and I'm not going to be able to get that $500,000 out for 5 years? Like, that's not a good investment. Compared to what? So if you were to put that $500,000 in the stock market, do you think you're going to get $500,000 out in 5 years? Like, do your math again. I am not going to make any earnings claims in this video. I am not trying to give any financial advice. I'm trying to help you understand the terms and how to use the terms in your due diligence so you can ask better questions and hear the answers that you need in order to make good, educated decisions. So the question I'm going to ask you, if you're asking me, is that a good ROI, is compared to what? What are you comparing the ROI to? So in my experience in a business, the less time commitment by an owner, the longer your expectation should be for the ROI. So if you put $1 million into a business, once it's up and operating, you're able to pull out $200,000 annually, let's say a 20% return annually. So you're able to get your $1 million back in 5 years. So if you said to me, well, that's not a good investment, I don't want to wait 5 years. And let's say that owners of this business validated to you about 5 to 10 hours a week to keep this business operating at a net earning of 200 grand. So if you came back to me and you said, I'm not willing to put in 5 to 10 hours a week for the next 5 years to get my $1 million in to get it out, that makes no sense to me. I would say, okay, what else are you going to do with that $1 million? And where do you think you're going to get a better return? And only you could decide where you're going to get a better return. Because the other things that we have to look at, not just the cash value that you're pulling out every year, the 200 grand in this fictitious scenario, but what is the value of this entity that you've built? If you are part of a nationally growing franchise that during those 5 years, the brand recognition has grown in the marketplace, and you're in an industry, let's say, that typically has a resale multiple of 2x or 3x, meaning that if you're pulling out 200,000, a typical resale value on that will go 3x. It would be, okay, I could put an asking price of 600,000 on this, and that would be reasonable. Now, let's factor in the brand equity of your franchise. So let's say you're part of a franchise that during those 5 years really started to grow. People around the country are like, this is an awesome brand. We all know those great American franchise brands. It's why we want to be franchisees, because we love the idea of being a part of some of those super cool brands. Okay, so let's say you're part of one. So there's a peak value. Now, during the 5 years while you were growing your business, let's say that all of the other areas around you happen to also sell. So there's no more territory available where you live. That makes what you have more valuable in and of itself. It also makes what you have valuable to some of your neighboring franchisees, potentially if they're looking for growth and there's no more place for them to grow. But let's say you go to a business broker and what you have has value because you have a profitable, cash flowing business with 5 years of stable track record and tax return. You're in a landlocked market, so there's no other place for these people to own this business in your area. And you're part of a national franchise brand that has been on an upward trajectory and will validate that by other franchisees. That may allow you to put a 4 or a 5x multiple on what you've built. So not only are you going to get back the $200,000 a year in this fictitious scenario, equating to a 5-year return on the initial capital investment, okay? But now you have a for sale sign for 5 times your 200,000. Oh, another million. So now this makes, if you're able to sell that business for $1 million, a $200 million return in 5 years. So how does that return sound? So it's incredibly short-sighted to only consider the cash flow coming out of the business. Now, I've said nothing about the tax advantages. So let's just stop and talk about that, because there are books out there on creating tax-free wealth. There are tax strategists that you can work with who will help you lower the tax burden. So it's not about what you're making, it's about what you're keeping. If you are a W-2 employee, and let's say you're earning $500,000 a year, right? And you're trying to justify quitting that to go buy a business where you're only going to make 200 grand a year. Like, this is a great video for you if you're stuck in that mindset loop of, why would I give up the job to go do this when I'm going to take a step back and pay? Because you can't compare the pay that you're getting as a W-2 to the salary or to the dividend return that you're getting from your business. Because the job, the W-2, stays at that salary. What do you get? A cost of living increase every year or every other year? And at any minute, that job could be pulled away from you. This business, once you've learned how to control it and you've built it to where you are producing great returns year over year, and I didn't even say anything about that. I just acted as if you built it to 200 grand and it just stayed there at 200 grand every year. So there's so many complicating factors to this conversation that it's not apples to apples because I make 500,000 over here and I'm going to invest my $1 million when I don't have to invest anything to keep a job. And I'm only going to make 200 grand a year. This equation doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense in year one, potentially, but it definitely makes sense as you grow that business and the brand that you're a part of is growing and you position your business for sale and you have these multipliers that multiply the money you've invested. That's the business game. Now, going back to the tax advantage. So let's say that when you're a W-2 employee at $500,000 a year, you're taxed at 35%, probably higher. We'll give you 35. Okay. So over here, as a business owner, and let's say that you're in a business that has some depreciable assets and you have a great accountant who helps you work with the laws that are created for business owners. And you're able to get your tax burden down to, say, 21%. So you just made 14% raise by not paying taxes. So is this conversation starting to make some sense to you, right? So when you are validating with other franchisees, you're not just out to validate what their cash flow or their net is every year. Who cares? You're not them. They're not you. You have skills that they don't have, and they have skills that you don't have. So your net return may not be anywhere near theirs. It may not be as high. It may not be as low. You have to validate what it takes to be successful in the business, understand the levers in the business, like what drives this business forward, and then apply you to that formula. That's going to be the winning solution, the mindset, right? The strategy of this success equation is 20% the franchise business plan that you're buying, and 80% your mindset, how you think, how you talk, and how you act. That's what equals success in business ownership. And by talking to a lot of people in the personal development industry, by saying that the franchise you're paying for is giving you 20% of success, that's being very, very generous. Most people in the personal development industry would tell you that the success equation is 5% strategy and 95% your mindset, how you think, how you talk, and how you act. Okay, so I think we've made a point on ROI. So let's flip back over to the break even of your business. So there are two types of break evens, as I've already mentioned. There's the monthly break even on cash flow. And then there's the break even on what I've already explained. That would be actually called your ROI, your return on investment. So what's more important to your stress level, to your happiness in running a business, is the cash flow on a monthly basis. Because a business that isn't cash flowing is what keeps you in bed at night awake. I'm going to keep my eyes open because they're definitely not going to be closed. It's what frustrates you. It's what aggravates you. It's what causes depression in your body. It's your greatest fear come true. The reason you're out there thinking about this and probably not doing it is because you're stuck behind the how do I not fail? How do I not end up in a business that's bleeding cash every month and not bringing enough cash in, right? Let's be real. I've done this for 22 years. I know it's the number one concern and it's valid. So you're going to buy the franchise, which is going to give you the tools and the strategy on how to serve a customer and make money, but it's how you mentally show up, how you think, how you talk, and how you act with your goals, with your motivation, with your will, with your tenacity, with your abundant, life-giving attitude to show up and serve people. That's what determines the cash flow situation in a business. So when we talk about the break even, why this is important is when I meet owners who are somewhere down the path and they're struggling and they are all the things I just mentioned, frustrated, scared, not sleeping, overworking. Inevitably, it's because they're burdened by a debt and they're not making enough cash flow to cover that debt. And every single month that they worry about it, they seem to get deeper and deeper into debt. Why is this happening? Okay, so it's happening for two reasons. Whatever we focus on expands. So if you're focused on what you're not getting and you're focused on the debt, the lack, the only thing you can create from that place is more lack. That is a law of the universe, the law of attraction. I'm sure you've heard it. Like attracts like. You cannot create abundance from lack. So if you come to me and you found yourself in this situation where you have more debt or more expenses every month than you have cash flow coming in, and you're worried about this, and you're trying to do something about this break even, you have to let go of the feeling of lack. I know it's really hard. I know what I'm asking you to do is almost illogical, but you have to do that in order to create a positive cash flow situation. And ultimately, the second thing I'm going to have you do is break down your business into daily bite-sized goals. I don't want you even focused on a 30-day break even. I want you focused on a daily break even. This is what I did. This is what made me go from 8 years as an average performing franchisee to 1 year later doing over 350% more revenue in my business and making history in my franchise. This is what I did. It's the reason that people are out there struggling instead of succeeding because they're thinking about break even as an annual term, not a daily term. And the difference is this weighty, overwhelming, overbearing, I'm never going to get there feeling to, oh, I just have to show up and do that today? It's almost absurd. Every single business that I reverse engineer from a huge revenue goal for the year, down to 12 months, down to a month, down to 4 weeks, down to 5 days, down to 2 days, makes it so easy to win. When you go from your annual break even to a daily break even, your attitude perspective completely changes. And when you show up to play a game that's simple and easy and fun, you're going to find yourself winning every single day. And this once overwhelming, frustrating, break-even term now feels like a game that you came to play and you can't lose. What typically happens is because most people think of break-even on an annual basis or even a monthly basis, they're lost because it's heavy. It's a big number. But when it's broken down and it allows you to show up to be present only for today, which is all we have, it becomes super simple and super fun. Now, if you're not showing up to execute daily, that's a whole nother video and I might have to make that one, but that is not the point of this video. The point of this video is to help you understand the terms that drive this business ownership conversation, break even and ROI. Have I done a good job? I hope this video has helped you. If you are inspired to begin your journey, to learn more about how to be successful, how to take yourself from lack and limitation to success and abundance in your franchise, not only just to find the perfect franchise, but to really understand what drives top performance, well, Kim Daly wants to be your daily coach and your franchise consultant. So now is the time. Find the link in the description below and reach out to me right now. I can't wait to meet you. Thank you so much for watching the video until the end, and I'll see you in the next one.